Hi all, and welcome to my channel, Fred Makes Things, and our Wednesday sewing video for you. This is the last Wednesday of the month, and what I try to do in this video is to explore something that I haven't explored before, be it patterns from different companies or different techniques in sewing or experimentation or what have you. And this month I bring you something fun out of this book. Today's Traditional Christmas. It's a table topper, right? The thumbnail says something about like making a star-centered table topper or some sort of table topper sentence, so it's not a surprise. But anyway, I'm going to break this video up into several parts like I always do. Part one is going to be talking about motivation and inspiration, like why are we making this table topper. The title of this book probably gives it away. Part two is going to be actually assembling the project. Part three is going to be pros, cons, and user error. And then part four is going to be my final thoughts and sign off. This doesn't require a lot of steps. There's not a lot of pros, cons, and user error. And I believe my final thoughts are going to be pretty quick. So all in all, this should be on the shorter side of these style of videos, but we'll see. So let's start with part one, inspiration and motivation, and a little backstory. So as you can see, I've pulled this lovely Reader's Digest Canada book out, Today's Traditional Christmas. This book was published in 2000, and I got it when it was brand new. See, copyright 2000 for Creative Publishing International. What I think is cool is that it's the Reader's Digest Canada book, but it was printed in the US. Not that crazy, but you know, Minnetonka, Minnesota, so just across the border. But yeah, so I've had this book since I want to say the year 2000 when it was published. And I say that because my grandma gave it to me in high school. I remember specifically having this book when I was still in high school, either grade 11 or grade 12, and I'm pretty sure it might have been grade 12 that I got it, because I graduated in high school in 2001, and I think that I got it then. I got it that Christmas before graduating, which would have been Christmas 2000, so kind of makes sense, right? I don't know how she got her hands on it, but I do know that she, I think she had a monthly subscription or however it worked to Reader's Digest at the time. So this was either something that was given to her or something that she ordered. And then she either showed it to me, because I've always been crafty, or she gave it to me. I can't remember which. Often that blurred in my mind as a teenager, my grandma showing me things and me just keeping them. So I know she never asked for it back, and she had no real interest in the book. So I'm pretty sure she gave it to me and I didn't just like take it, but who knows? Anyway, so I've come to this book a few times for inspiration, mostly for ornaments. Like if you look, some of these things are very like 90s feeling, but they're Christmas ornaments and tree skirts and centerpieces and a whole bunch of different fun things. That's what we're going to be talking about in a minute. But I've used this book a few times over the years, and I actually quite enjoy it. So the first thing that I made out of this book were these marbleized ornaments, right? I was just taking glass ornaments and paints and kind of swirling them around. I made these in Lethbridge when I first got the book, so I remember that specifically. And then I made them the year later, I think, with my nieces or for my nieces in Edmonton, or Wetaskiwin, really, when I was living in them. Then I made these paper ornaments for my mother-in-law. I have a whole stack of these still sitting around that I could cut out and make. I made these for her, and I want to say the Christmas of 2009, right after my husband and I moved in together. We hadn't gotten married yet, but we moved in together, and I think it was the first Christmas that my husband and I were like spent together, and not just doing our own separate family things. So I've made those, and I made these as well. I still have these floating around too. I have a box that I've been carrying around since I first made these, again, probably in 2009. And yeah, so I'm very familiar with this book. And I have always been curious about some of them. Some of the things in here, not all of the things in here. Some of these things are kind of silly. But this lovely guy here, this Pieced Star table topper, has always interested me. And when we first moved here to the United States, I pulled it out and I tried making it again, and it went horribly, horribly wrong. So I decided to try again this year. It's been in the back of my mind to make, since it went horribly wrong in 2019, it's been in the back of my mind to make, I'll be honest, since I got this book in 2000 or 2001 or what have you. So yeah, I really enjoy it, and that is like, oh, those are terrifying. But that is what we're going to do today. Talk about making Papayas trimmed stockings. Let's see, that's 890s fabric too. Okay, anyway, talk about this Pieced Star table topper. That is what we're doing today. So let's do part 2, assembling the project. So for this project, I needed 3 yards of fabric for my star and my lining, or 3/4 of a yard for 4 fabrics, for 4 fabrics for star and lining, 8 and tassels, which were optional. But you did need a lot of pattern, a lot of fabric. Sorry. But it's actually, the greatest amount of work for this thing was cutting everything out. And I kind of made that more difficult on myself than I needed to. But we'll talk about that in just a second. So cutting directions is that they wanted you to cut out a pattern that they walked you through. So they kind of want you to draft a really simple pattern first. So this is where I messed up 4 years ago when I tried this. And I was really impatient, and I didn't take my time to draft it out properly, so nothing that I cut worked out properly. So it was just a mess. I managed to save the pieces and put them into something else, I believe. Or there's a bunch of scrap sitting upstairs, but I'm pretty sure I managed to salvage the pieces for something else. So I did this first. I pulled out some tracing paper or freezer paper. I have some sort of patterning paper upstairs. Traced this out following the instructions. Here's a picture of it when it's cut out and complete. This took me probably about an hour to get right, because I really wanted to get this right this time. So I really took my time. So this took me probably about an hour. And then cutting out the pieces also took so long. So it says, yeah, it's pretty simple, right? It's like, okay, it's like draw a square, draw a like an oblong diamond in it, make a quarter, add a 1/4 inch to make seam allowances, and then it says cut out pattern, but it doesn't tell you how many pieces you need to cut out. I will tell you, you need 16. And then it just walks you through this. It's weird that it doesn't tell you how many. Oh, I guess it does on this page. It says, make the pattern as on page 120. Cut 8 diamonds from the fabric or fabrics for the star. Also cut out diamonds from the fabric for the lining. So they tell you that there. Then they walk you through how to draft and cut out your table topper pattern, and then it's jumping right into sewing. And as you can see on the page, there's only 7 steps. So I picked out, I want to show you the fabric first, is I picked out these 2 beautiful fabrics. I first picked out this super beautiful swirly fabric. Like, look at that. It's like this royal blue, almost purple, super metallic, it's shiny, and it has like these little snowflakes in them. Oh, I love it. I love it so, so much. And then I picked this out first, and then as I was wandering around, I saw this, and I was like, oh, look at how nice they look together. I really like this gold running through here, and I decided right then and there I was going to buy enough fabric of these 2 to make them into a reversible star topper, table topper pattern thing, right? Like, I'd always had this topper in the back of my mind, and when I saw these, I said that's the fabric I'm going to make them with. Cutting out this swirly pattern, it wasn't too difficult because it's not directional, so I could just like line up a bunch of sections and cut them all out at once. So I cut these out in 2s and 4s at a time, I believe. So this went fairly quickly, but then for this one, I needed to cut them out one by one individually because I wanted to make sure that the stripe was running in the proper direction, right? Wasn't kind of angled or wonky in any fashion. And I really wanted to make sure that I had a gold stripe somewhere at either directly on the point or near the point so that they all kind of like merged together when you sewed them. So these are the 2 fabrics that I bought. I bought 2 yards of each, and it ate through almost the entirety of both yards. I have more of the swirling fabric left than I do of the striped fabric. And that's just because I needed to use up more of the stripe so that I had my stripes sitting properly. This one, I could have been, I was able to be a little bit more wishy-washy with, but this one, not so much. I had to get this one right. Can you see those? I can't see the top of my filming screen, but I just thought that maybe you might see some diamond painting trays, and I wanted to hide them. If you didn't, then that was just a waste. But anyway, so I picked these, 1 for the top, 1 for the lining. I considered this blue swirl the top, this stripe the lining, but because both of them, it's reversible, so it doesn't really matter which is on which side. I just wanted to cover that first so that we can move on to the next steps. So I did iron, no, actually I did not iron these. I kind of like pressed them down, but because they're like a thicker material, they're quite stiff and they didn't really need ironing at first. So now, once everything was cut out, which also took me probably 2 hours to do, like an hour to cut out the diamond and then another 2 hours to cut all of these out. Again, the swirl was faster. The straight diamonds, though, to cut 8 of them took me nearly, I want to say nearly an hour. But like I said, I was trying to be as precise as possible. They had you sew your pieces together. So first step is you sewed all or two diamonds together at a time. So you took your 8 pieces from the top, sewed them together to get 4 sections. Same with your bottom. Take your 8 pieces together, sew them together, 4 sections. Turns into 4 sections. Now this is also like an elongated triangle on one side and a shorter triangle on the other, so you had to make sure you were matching up your short triangles rather than your long triangles, so that you wanted it to come together on this angle that you see on the screen rather than the longer angle, which would have had them coming in at a more of a steeper angle. but it kind of was self-evident when you were sewing. Then when you sewed your 4 pieces together, then you took those 4 pieces and you sewed them into 2 large pieces, your like left side and right side, or your top side and lower side, or however you want to think about it. But you had 2 halves now. You did it for your top and for your bottom. I took special care, well, I shouldn't say that, because I took special care with cutting my stripes. The stripes kind of sat nicely right from the beginning, and I did not really have to mess around with it too much. Then when you had all your 4 halves together, then you sewed those 2 halves together, and they wanted you to leave an opening at the very top so that you could open up your stitches that you had just made, like the top sections of all of your stitches, so that you could open those up and have less bulk when you're ironing closed that top little section. I did that, but I didn't open up the stitches. I just made sure that everything was as aligned as my patience allowed for, and then I just sewed over everything and then trimmed. One very important thing is that when you're ironing all of your seam allowances, you want to iron them all facing the same direction, so that when you're stitching everything together, everything comes together in a proper kind of circular point. This photo shows it to you here. You see how everything is pointing this way? And that's just so that all of your seam allowances and stuff nest really nicely in the center. When all of that was done, you wanted to iron everything, make sure that it is all nice and flat. And because you were doing this both for your top and your lining, you were ready to sew your top and your lining together. I took my time sewing this together too, because I wanted to make sure that all of my points were properly put together. So what I did is I sewed 2 points, like the top and the bottom together, right sides facing, and I did all of the points going in one direction, and then I went back and did all the points going in the other direction. So imagine that this is your bottom section, this is your top section, right? And you have a whole bunch of points going around. So you're trying to line up these 2 guys together, right? Like imagine that this all lines up properly. Right, so it's all lined up. And what I did is, because I had 8 sections I needed to sew, I sewed this section down first, skipped over this section, went to the next section, right? Sewed, like I sewed all of like my left-sided sections together first. Then I went back and I sewed all of my right-sided sections together. And on my very last section, I left a gap of about 4 inches where I could then turn everything right side out, iron it flat, and top stitch it. So I did this just to make sure that, like, in case something wasn't cut as properly or something shifted or something, that all of my points would have like a nice edge, right? So all of the points on one edge would be nice and clean, and then all of the points on the other edge would also be nice and clean. And I started at the center point of the star and I sewed down. This just made me feel like I had more control over it, rather than kind of like sewing all of the pieces together and then coming near the end and realizing something had gotten out of place or a little bit wonky. So I'll show it better to you when I actually show you the example. But I took my time and I backstitched every top and I backstitched every bottom, and then I crossed over and backstitched again to make sure that everything was nice and tight. Then I ironed it all flat and again flipped it right side round. I did trim all of my points before I flipped it right side round, but I forgot to trim my inner points as well. So some things didn't sit as nicely as they should. But we'll talk about that in user error. Flipped it right side round, tucked in the opening really nice and tight, ironed everything nice and flat again, made sure there was no weird puckers or anything like that, and then I sewed a top stitch all the way around. Now the pattern doesn't require a top stitch, it just says slip stitch the opening closed and add a tassel to each point if desired. I don't have the right colored tassels and I didn't really care about adding them really. Plus with cats, you never know if the cat is going to go after tassels or not. So I just decided it was better not to try. And that was it. So the most complicated part of this was to like piece everything together, or to cut out the pattern properly. And then once that was done, everything else came together pretty nicely. Now, I don't have enough room on my little filming area to show you everything properly. So there's going to be photos that pop up for you as well, so you can see both the top side and the underside. But I did want to show you up close what the points actually look like. So here's one of the points here. Okay, you can see the puckers there, but you can see that this section of this star here is shallower than this section of the star. Like when you fold the star in half, you can see that there is like an overhang lap, right? You can see how much further this star is hanging from here. But this is the one side. Again, there'll be photos up for you, right, with all the points. Here's the underside. All right, and as you can see, like all of these come together pretty nicely. Some sections really match up quite nicely, some don't. Here's my center portion here. It's not as clean as it could be, but I think it looks pretty nice. Here's the center point on this side. Much nicer, right? Because you don't have to worry about the directionality of the fabric. All of my points, they're not as pointed as I would like them to be, but I think that they still worked out pretty nicely. Talk about that in user error. But yeah, so before we move on to the next step, we'll just pause and we'll look at the top nicely laid out on my dining room table. I love how this swirl looks. It's so pretty. I hope the pictures are doing it justice because I haven't taken the photos yet because I have to clean off my dining table first. But anyway, so pretty. And I really love the bottom too, or the stripe. I think it's so nice as well. I don't know if it's necessarily Christmas, this bottom stripe. But it could be. I used to decorate with a lot of blues, but it was blue and silver, right? Because of the early 2000s. But I really like how nice this blue and gold looks. Like I'm really, really happy with how this thing turned out. So let's talk part 3, pros, cons, and user error. So, pro, I finally have this table topper that I've been thinking about. And I have to be honest, I think about it almost every year around Christmas time. I think, ooh, maybe this is the year that I'm going to make that topper. And I never do. So I'm really happy 23 years after getting this book that I was, well, 22 years, we'll say 22, 23 years after getting this book, I was finally able to make one of the sewing projects out of it. I'm going to flip through and see if I can make other ones too that don't necessarily require like it to be Christmassy, or maybe I'll look at some of the food and drinks that they have in there and see if my mother-in-law wants to like play around with some of that stuff this Christmas. We'll see. But yeah, Pro. I really like it. I'm really happy with it, and I'm so happy to have it. This fabric was on sale from Joann Fabrics at 50% off. So even though I did end up buying 2 yards of each, I want to say that it was probably no more than $20, $25 in fabric for this, which was nice. But it does eat up a lot of fabric. So cons. It eats up a lot of fabric. Its directions could be a little bit more clear at times, but I've always found that with that book, that the directions are always a little like uncertain at times. But I really do like how they walked you through drafting the piece so that you can make it properly. And then user error. So like I said, I clipped all of these, so these sit nicely, right? They're not as pointed as I'd like them to be, but they are points and they do look nice. But I did accidentally cut through this point at some point. And I also caused a whole bunch of fraying and stuff. So the other night when I noticed it after I turned it over, I just dumped a bunch of glue onto it to keep it together, to hold it in place. It's not as clean. It's not as finished as I would like, but like, look at how nice that stripe comes down to its point. But because this is for me, I'm not giving it away. I'm not selling it. I'm decorating my house with it. I'm okay with that because I know I can just kind of hide it and nobody will be able to really see it, tell that I did that. So that's a user error. All right, that's a big issue. And then the other thing is that I did not trim the interior corners on these like I should have. Like I should have let like little triangles, run my pinking shears over them so that these corners sat nicer. You can't really tell when it's laid out really though, that they're puckered like a little bit. Like again, because it's for me, it doesn't matter too much. If I were to make this again to sell or something, or as a gift, I would definitely remember to trim these interior corners. And they do tell you to do that on the pattern as well. It was just something that at the time I wasn't thinking about. So those are my two main user errors, I would like to say. Yeah, so now let's get into final thoughts and sign off. I'm sure that you've noticed I absolutely love this thing. I think it's so nice. I love the fabric. I love the colors. I love like everything about it. And I've always wanted a table topper thing like this, and now I have it and I'm just over the moon. You could do this in so many different fabrics, like they showed in the sample photos, right? Like you could do like plaids and things and make it feel more like a country Christmas, cottage Christmas kind of feeling. But I am so happy that I went the super shiny route for it. I'm usually not a super shiny person in my like everyday aesthetic, but for Christmas, I'm making the exception. I am in love. I will probably never make it again though, because it goes through like a lot of fabric, and it was a lot of cutting and a lot of being patient with the cutting, because you want your diamonds to sit perfectly together. Like they need to be all like really, really well cut and in good size. I don't know if I would do a stripe again or anything that's really heavily directional, because the top was definitely easier to cut out than the bottom, but I cannot be upset with the result. I think it's so pretty. I'm so happy with it. So yeah, that's the end of this video. What do you think? Do you like it? Are you as in love with the color as I am? Or does it fall a little bit on the tacky side? I have to admit, when it comes to Christmas decor, I tend to fall slightly a little bit on the gauche side, the little tacky. I don't think it's Christmas if you don't have that kind of feeling. A little shiny, a little bright. I think it's just, oh, I think it's so great. But I'd be curious to hear what you have to say. Also, have you ever come across one of these kinds of table toppers yourself? Like, do you have other patterns you could recommend or let me think about? I know just with things like this, you use up a lot of fabric anyway. And I have a whole lot of scrap that I'm going to be like messing around with for other projects in the future. But just, yeah, I'd be curious to hear all of your thoughts on this lovely table topper. The picture also shows that you could put it on like a small round table, right, and have the points hang down the side. I don't have one of those tables. Years ago, when I worked in the bedding store, we had them to show off like table toppers like that, right, and we had them set up next to like our bedding, like our big bed displays and stuff, so you could kind of get an idea of like proportion and like how fun things are, right, and just as display. And they were just like 3-legged tables, and I hated them. I hated them so much, and I swore I would never have tables like those in my house. And so far, I've gotten away with not having anything like that. But yeah, and I haven't put this on my dining room table, so I'm really hoping that it fits properly and looks good, and it's just not me hoping in my imagination that it's nicer than I think it is. But I have seen this laid out on the floor, and I'm really happy with it, so pretty sure I'm going to like it on my table as well. But anyway, I'd be curious to hear what you have to say. And yeah, so we're heading into our 24 videos of Christmas, of December, of holiday. I don't know. It's just a running thing now where I don't know what I'm calling all 24 videos that I'm making next month. So if you'd like to subscribe, I will tell you there's going to be more sewing content. There is a bunch of time lapses. There's like, if I can get it done, there's going to be things like 5 things Sewers Club taught me. There's going to be unboxings, a whole bunch of good stuff. Also, if you've made it to the end, I will tell you too, I might put it in a community post, I'm not sure. I keep talking about doing a FabFitFun unboxing for you. I've had the box for like a week and a half. I filmed it, but I'm not happy about the filming of it. I don't know. It feels off, and I don't think I'm going to edit it and upload it, just because it would just be a bonus video. It doesn't fit anywhere in, and I'm not certain if I'm happy with it or not. But let me know in the comments section, because if you're still here, I think you're more interested in all the randomness that I create. But if you're still here, let me know in the comments if you'd like to see the FabFitFun unboxing, or it's like, okay, maybe not this season, but maybe again next season. I'd be curious to hear what you think about all of that in the comments as well. Right, getting back to subscribing. But anyway, so look forward to 24 videos of December, starting on Friday with our very first diamond painting video. Friday is a diamond painting video. Saturday is Stash Builder. I'm filming that next. And Sunday is a life update. And I'll give you a warning now. It's not very happy. I'm good now at the moment of this time of filming this, but I'll just give you a warning that Sunday's video is a little heavy. I haven't filmed it yet, but I know what I'm saying, and it's heavy. Not to worry, I'm good, my husband is good, and my cats are fine. But anyway, I'm gonna go and leave you on that lovely cliffhanger. But yeah, so like the video if you've made it to the end. I'd be really curious to hear all that you have to say. And with that being said, I'm gonna say thank you so much for watching, and I will talk with you again soon. Bye!